How's it going, guys? We're back taking a look at the American Revolution, and we're in section 2 of chapter 6. We're going to look at the colonies declaring their independence. As we move through the lecture, I want you to keep this essential question in mind. Why did the colonies declare their independence? And we're going to look at three things that you should be able to do when answering this question. Describe the impact of common sense by Thomas Paine. You should be able to list steps Congress took to declare independence. And then lastly, summarize the main ideas of the Declaration of Independence. Over the next couple of days, we're going to actually look at the document, the pamphlet Common Sense, and also the document, the Declaration of Independence. And so today is kind of an overview of those particular documents. Common Sense was created by Thomas Paine, and its basic gist of Common Sense was to arouse the colonists in order to help them agree or to side with the leaders in breaking away from Great Britain. I've provided a video here for you. I'll set up the link later that you can look at to kind of give you a little bit of Thomas Paine's background, how he came from Britain, how Benjamin Franklin enlisted him to come over to the States and work. So you can look at the link later and kind of look at the Discovery Education video. Thomas Paine's Common Sense sold over 500,000 copies. Now, if you think about it, in today's time, Common Sense would have been on the New York Times bestseller list. Common Sense was, in terms of printing, was only second to that of the Bible in its day. Two types of people that were really in the colonies and the Common Sense were trying to speak to. The first was those that believed Parliament didn't have the right to make laws in the 13 colonies, so kind of to corral the home team, if you will, together, and then also to kind of target some of those who were still loyal to Great Britain. On yesterday, you had an opportunity to look at two documents from loyalists of that day and see what were their reasons behind wanting to be loyal to the crown as opposed to gaining independence. And so think about those documents when you think about the purpose of Common Sense when we take a look at it on tomorrow. Here's a quote from Common Sense. In England, a king hath no more to do than to make war and give away jobs, which in plain terms is to impoverish the nation. Of more worth is one honest man to society than all the crown ruffians that ever lived. Everything that is right or reasonable pleads for separation. And so Paine is really trying to target two things. The idea that we don't owe the king anything, that the colonies don't owe loyalty to Great Britain, and third, really, that the colonists, it's common sense based on what the British were doing to the colonies in terms of intolerable acts, in terms of the taxation without representation, and even placing soldiers on their soil. It was common sense for separation. Here are some key points we're going to look at on tomorrow with Common Sense. But basically, Common Sense was pointing out that colonists, as I said earlier, did not owe loyalty to the king. Second, the colonists did not owe anything to Great Britain. Again, you have generations removed that were born in the United States who aren't actually directly connected in terms of having moved from Britain to the colonies, and so the idea of not really owing anything to Great Britain. And then lastly, the idea that anything that Great Britain or the crown did was for their profit. It wasn't for the profit of those in the colonies. And so Thomas Paine was trying to really drive home these points in his pamphlet, Common Sense. Now, Congress votes for independence. King George III, he has already labeled them as traitors, people who betray their country. And so voting for independence would automatically put them on the list of or in line for treason. And so again, hanging of those officials who were in charge, in particular our delegates, our founding fathers, their lives were at stake because of their decision. On the committee, John Adams, Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Robert Livingston, and Robert Sherman. Each of these guys were given the task to actually draw up a letter for our declaration. Um, Declaration of Independence was basically to alert the world, to let them know that we were breaking away. It wasn't just a conversation between Great Britain and the United States, but it was also a conversation and expression to the entire world. And we're going to look later how this actually solicit help from the French and others as we went through our revolution. And then lastly here you see Thomas Jefferson is the author of it, but as I said earlier, the Declaration Committee came together, and then Jefferson was actually asked by Adams to actually draw up and write up the document. So in 1776, on the 4th of July, the delegates adopt and sign it. We're gonna you have an opportunity to look at a video, again, that will be linked on Moodle, where you can actually see how this process took place, and how actually on July 2nd they were again trying to coalesce together and talk about it and talk through some of the issues that they have with the document, and then finally on the 4th coming to conclusion. Have you ever heard the statement, when you're signing a letter, get your John Hancock? This is where it's sort of derived from. John Hancock, again, making a bold statement, knowing that this was historic in what the colonists were doing in terms of their breaking away from Great Britain. And so he's the first to sign in very bold letters here, as you see on the Declaration of Independence. Again, right in the Declaration, you'll see I have an opportunity to link to our TED Talk and see the actual writing and how the process took place. Our last section of our notes, we're going to look at the Declaration of Independence, and not so much the words, but its structure. The very first part of the Declaration of Independence is our introduction, kind of introducing why are we doing this. Then it goes on to spell out the natural rights, saying that rights belong to the people from birth. It's given by God, and some of the rights, as it's spelled out in terms of the natural rights, the government's whole purpose is to protect those rights. And then that the government, the reason why it exists or its purpose is because of the consent of the people. The people holds the power in order for the government to function and to have to take action. And then lastly, what's really important and really a declaration to Great Britain, if that government fails to uphold to our natural rights or protect those natural rights, then the people have the right to overthrow. Now, all of these particular thoughts that we see here in the Declaration of Independence, we'll see and talk about, again, are encouraged or inspired by some other writings, even those of the British. And then in the Declaration of Independence, you see the British wrongs are spelled out. Here is just a quote from that particular section. In every state of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Again, if you think about the olive branch petition that was sent out, explaining how the British have mistreated the colonists, yet it was rejected. As it says here, our repeated petitions have been answered only with repeated injury. And so the colonists continue on saying that we've been wronged, we've tried to make it right, but you have not listened. And then it goes on to say, a prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of free people. And then the last section of a declaration is a Declaration of Independence. It announces that the colonies are the United States of America. And I quote, "And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other," that's all of the colonies, the 13 colonies, "our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." And so the colonies are declaring that they're one nation, solidified, willing to fight and declare war with Great Britain in order to gain their independence. What I'd like you to do now is write your summary of your notes. If you have any questions, go ahead and jot those down in your question section of your notes, and we'll go over those in class. Hope you've been encouraged by what you've heard, and I'll talk to you guys or see you tomorrow. Bye.